Thank you, Crystal, for organizing all of this like you have uh, everything else since last April when I first came upon Hopewell House. And it's become a village for, I think, all of us. And in the meantime, I think, none of us know how to deal with grief, but we're going to be working in a environment where we're going to be around a lot of grief and a lot of happiness and a lot of all sorts of emotions. As my good friend Mick Jagger said, I think I was in the midst of my 19th nervous breakdown. And then just through Kismet, one of my neighbors told me about Joseph's class, The Mysteries of Dying, and it was transformative. He is truly, I would say, a master. It was very healing. And I'd like to introduce Joseph Britton right now, and I'm so glad that our paths crossed. And Joseph at Princeton University was a mechanical engineer designing energy systems in a different department at Princeton. He was an instructor in yoga movement, sound, and meditation. And in Japan, where he lived for many years at Osaka Metropolitan University, he was a professor of communications and mindfulness. Um, his he has an enormously varied background in uh, uh, his personal studies. He studied with the Zen Buddhist abbot Uchiyama Kosho Roshi in Kyoto, Japan. He's has taught seminars throughout Asia and Europe. He has become a Hellerwork body movement practitioner, which I had never heard of. I started looking into that. Fascinating. Um, he's presently on the State Board of Oregon Mortuary and Cemetery Board of Directors, and I took his class online at Portland Community College, where he teaches the mysteries of dying classes and also mindfulness, awareness practice, and he's a hospice volunteer for people who die alone. And even though I'm reading this, I'm not giving him his the full depth. You'll experience that in just another few seconds here. Um, he's studied Hinduism, the Sikh religion, Sufi mysticism of Islam, and Buddhism. And I think it's really important to understand his message to his students is practice loving kindness, and I think that will be our mainstay. One of our volunteers, Emil, came back from a retreat, and he said, we need to look at self-compassion. And so with that, I think Joseph will, lead us to that promised land. And I proudly introduce Joseph Britton, and with a lot of love in my heart, because he really is a truly a phenomenal individual. So Joseph, are you there?
Oh, Jim, most dear thanks to you. You're truly a jewel in the lotus.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh my God. Thank you. Okay.
And thanks to Crystal for putting this together tonight. And of course, Leslie and staff and board members, so many volunteers, and everyone who truly through their imagination and effort have woven into existence this splendid, precious, warm home where our brothers and sisters of all religious, sexual, ethnic, racial persuasions can lovingly and peacefully complete with dignity their earthly journey here. So thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm going to put us on a meditation here. Let me see here. Hold on one moment here. I'm going to put us on share screen. There we go. So we're going to be talking about a little bit of the mysteries of dying tonight. This meditation is really along the line of the Vietnamese Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh. And I love his meditations. I especially love this one because it's an appreciation for these precious moments that we have together on this planet. So I'm going to guide you through it. We're going to be doing a couple of meditations tonight, and you can do it if you please. I strongly encourage you to do these. We're just going to go through this once, and it's very simple. I'm going to ask you to inhale, and I will say calm. Exhale, I will say clear. You just have to listen. Inhaling present moment, exhaling wonderful moment. So if you'd like, kindly be in a beautiful, dignified, meditative position. If you can, have your spine, your back aligned with gravity. Hands can just be relaxed. Eyes can be open or closed, whatever you're comfortable with. And we'll begin with a long, deep inhale. And I will say this, you can just listen. Long inhale, calm. Exhale, clear. Inhale, present moment. Exhale, wonderful moment. And each moment truly is wonderful. Let me move to the next slide here. These are touchstones, and I think we can all agree to these. Be present as fully as possible. Listen generously. Speak from your heart if you'd like to speak. Express the essence and respect one another. Okay. Let me take us out of screen share. You know, there are these great paradoxes that we live with on a day-to-day basis that really create a lot of stress in our life because we don't know how to resolve them. And we're trying to grasp the fabric of reality, but these paradoxes keep coming up. For example, life wants to live, yet I must die. I yearn for joy, yet I suffer. My love seeks expression, yet I fear. So, you know, in regard to these and regarding the great matter of dying, sometimes we think, well, maybe I don't want to deal with that today, and I don't want to think about these things about death and dying. The Dalai Lama, one of the Dalai Lama's teachers, a great teacher, Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, he used to say to his students, can you tell me that tomorrow you won't die? So in regard to that, I'm going to quickly put you right back on screen share. And we're going to look at something which I would like you to contemplate. Oh, by the way, just went back here. This is what we're talking about tonight. Transforming fear, mindfulness methods, and also death beliefs. These are, for the moment, I'm going to refer to this Buddhist Sutra of the 5 remembrances. It doesn't matter what religion you have or don't have. I think for sure you can relate to all of these. First one is, I'm of the nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. I'm of the nature to have ill health. There's no way to escape ill health. I'm of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. Before we move on, all of these first 3, you know, there's people trying to escape ill health and trying to remain young forever. There's so many people out there, especially several billionaires who are trying to defy death and illness, growing old. But of course, we can't do that. And it creates a lot of suffering for people. Next one, all that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature to change. There's no way to escape being separated from them. And that's a difficult one for everyone, that all those that we love at one point on this planet, we are going to lose. My actions are my only true belongings. I cannot escape the consequences of my actions. My actions are the ground upon which I stand. Okay, let me take us out. I have, in my life, I have never been without, on a daily basis, the thoughts of death, fear, and love. When I had just turned 4, and this is in upstate New York, it was a cold winter night. I just had my birthday and I was lying in bed. The windows were crystalline, these beautiful crystalline patterns of frost. And I was lying there and I flew out of my body. Again, I just turned 4 years old. I didn't know what was going on. I was out in the cosmos flying around and there was a lot going on and I had the feeling that I had just died. It was exhilarating and terrifying. And without getting into all the things I was shown, I went back into my body and I started running downstairs because I knew my parents would be watching TV. And I was going to try to explain it to them, but I had no words to explain it. And I knew there's no way they could understand the experience I just had. So from that point, and as I mentioned, every day, death and fear and love have always been on my mind. When I was a child, there were 9 of my relatives around me, they lived around me, died. And I watched them die slowly of cancer and COVID-related symptoms, not COVID, COPD symptoms. And I watched their bodies slowly, gradually diminish. And it was painful for me to watch this. And I was trying to understand, what is this suffering? So jumping ahead, when I was 23 years old, when I was working at Princeton, in the department where I was teaching, I was asked by the administration, can you please teach our staff and faculty and students stress techniques? And in my overconfidence, I said, sure. So I showed it to them, and this went on for a while, and it worked fantastically for 24 hours. And I realized, wow, there's much more to this with anxiety and fear and stress. And there are 2 main things that I was, at the time, was not aware of. And of course, we need to do all these basic things like having good rest and eating good food and good companions. But these 2 things that eluded me were the first one is that you cannot push away grief and fear and the inner turmoil. These are uninvited guests. They're at our door and we need to befriend them. The second thing that was missing was that love must be present. And I'm not just talking about intellectually and thinking, oh, I'm going to love more. I'm talking about actually physically, deeply, emotionally feeling it. So again, it's not pushing away the grief and the fear, but to befriend it and also having love present. So this gets into, there's fear in our society. It's everywhere. It's all around. We feel it. And the question is, how do we relate to that? So what I would like to do right now is take you through a meditation dealing with fear. Again, you don't have to do this. You can just sit and listen. But if you'd like to join in to experience it, I highly encourage it. And there's going to be two parts of it, and it's a very short meditation. The first one is with a breath. It's a breath that's been shown that really calms the system down. You know, it lowers the blood pressure, it decreases the rhythm of the heart. It's really wonderful to do. And the other one, I'm going to have you, the second part, and I'll tell you when, just place your hand over your heart. Okay. So if you're willing, let's give this a try. Okay. So I'll ask you again to sit in a nice position. And this is, as I mentioned before, this is a meditation for dealing with anxiety and fear. Okay. So be in a beautiful, dignified position. Okay. Have the shoulders relaxed. Hands can be on your lap. And this is going to be a breath. It's called the 4-7-8 breath. Maybe some of you have heard of it. It's been around for quite a long time. And basically with this breath is I'm going to ask you to inhale on 4 parts, then hold the breath. So you're going to take a strong inhale and hold the breath for 7 parts and exhale for 8 parts. And I'm going to guide you through this, so don't worry about the counting, okay? Then we're going to go into a meditation where I'm going to say some things and guide you through it. Okay, so if you're ready, let's begin. Okay, with a long, slow, deep inhale of 4 parts, begin. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it for 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale with 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Begin inhaling. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One more time. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll be breathing normally. And with the inhale, I will say this, you don't have to repeat it. With the inhale, hello, fear. Exhale, I know you. Inhale, I feel you in my body. Exhale, I feel you in my bones. Now place your hand over your heart. Inhale, I am love. Exhale, I will hold you. Inhale, I am here for you. Exhale, my love is all. Okay, and just sit with that for a moment. Just be with it. Just be with the love in your body and let the love spread throughout your body. And remembering, I am love. Okay, so we'll continue. So this has a lot to do also with equanimity, that spaciousness that can relate and allow any feeling, any occurrence, any arising, and still be free. Also, with this kind of a meditation that we just did, it requires repetition. So at the beginning of it was not pushing away the fear, it was recognizing it, acknowledging it, holding it, and loving it. And having that presence of love and knowing that each one of us, we are love. But again, it requires a great deal of repetition. And I say that because you can try this for yourself. at moments when you're feeling kind of down and out, you're just exhausted, maybe you're ill at times, and you're lying there, your mind is so confused and you don't want to do anything, trying to be in a positive state or a state of love. I think we all know this, it's quite difficult, it's quite challenging. And as you know, you can imagine with people who are in the final days of their life, to try to be in the state of love, and especially the state of clarity, wow, it's like, it is the biggest challenge. Any one of those things, you know, trying to be in a state of love, especially trying to focus. It's so incredibly difficult to do. So that's why we need to practice this, you know, on a regular basis. Anytime you're lying down, you know, you don't have to be feeling ill or feeling distraught or anxious. Just try practicing it. Any of the emotions that might come up, dealing with anxiety or fear, depression, anger, whatever it might be, just take it in, surround it with love, let the love be in your body, and practice that. Yes, just keep practicing. You know, don't wait till you're, for yourself, I'm talking about yourself right now, don't wait until the last moments of your life. So this will also help us to understand, you know, what a person is going through in the final days, because really what's happening is they're trying to put together this puzzle of their life, you know, and they say, people, if they can speak, will say all kinds of strange things. I was listening to Dr. Karen Wyatt, who she's a retired hospice physician, and she has a really wonderful podcast, End of Life University. And she was talking about her mother, that she was with her mother in her final days, and they had been discussing for months, you know, what to do when she is going through these final days. And so in the last couple of weeks, her mother went into a state where she was conscious, semi-conscious, and most of the time she was unconscious. And she was just waiting for her mother to come out and say some incredible words to her, maybe some prophetic words or some divine words. So she was waiting and waiting, and then all of a sudden her mother, her eyes opened and she smiled, and Karen Wyatt, she got so excited. Oh, she's going to say it. And her mother said, "I'd like some fried onion." So, you know, so Karen was just shocked by this. And then her mother closed her eyes, and shortly after that, she died. So, you know, what was that all about? And so for Karen, she realized that, well, you know, okay, this is part of, her mother was putting together her puzzle. That was part of her life, because in her, you know, she loved fried onions. And that's what's going on to people as they're going in and out of this transcendent state, more and more and more and more. I'd like to actually read you something that Thich Nhat Hanh, who he's mainly the main person in the West who has been using that word of mindfulness, and he died. I think he was 96. He died this past year, or in 2022. But this is something that he wrote. It's called "No Death, No Fear." Quote, "Watering the seeds of happiness is a very important practice for the sick or dying. All of us have seeds of happiness inside us. And in difficult moments, we are sick or when we are dying, there should be a friend sitting with us to help us touch the seeds of happiness within. Otherwise, seeds of fear, of regret, or despair can easily overwhelm us." Okay. Yeah, having a friend who can nurture the seeds of happiness with us during difficult times. I'd like for a moment, or a very brief moment, talk about this big topic of mindfulness, which we've all heard in so many different ways. What is mindfulness? And I'd like to give sort of a definition of this that I use. It's basically the awareness that arises by focusing on the present moment, non-judgmentally and with fresh eyes. I'll say that again. The awareness that arises by focusing on the present moment, non-judgmentally and with fresh eyes. Okay. So let me go over some of these mindfulness practices. This is not, I'm not going to mention every single thing that includes mindfulness, but I'll mention a few brief ones. Okay, one that most people relate to is sitting meditation. This is observing thoughts and letting go. For example, in Zen meditation, Zazen, this is used, I believe, that of the many practices that I've studied, I believe this is the most simple and the most difficult, because you're observing thoughts that arise and you're letting them go. And because you're not doing a mantra and you're not doing things with colors and mandalas and all kinds of symbology, what you're doing is you're just sitting and all these thoughts are coming out of the unconscious. And it can get really intense. So it's observing thoughts and letting go. This is also very similar to Vipassana. This reduces rumination and also judgmental thoughts. Another form of sitting meditation is guided meditation. We're going to do it right at the end. This is especially beneficial for people who are having difficulty sitting, sitting and doing a meditation. And quite a few people, it's too much for them. So doing a guided meditation is really helpful for them. Another thing is body scans, looking at your body, observing your body. How are you feeling? This is wonderful to do. So this is sitting meditation. The second one would be basically loving kindness, thoughts of warmth and thoughts of warmth and love toward others. This is really what we're heading toward, always loving kindness. This is really what mindfulness is all about. A third one is mindfulness walking. I love this one, especially if you're in a hospice environment, learning how to walk mindfully. Sometimes there's an emergency and you want to run down the hall, or something dramatic is happening and you get really tense, your body tenses up and you run into the room, and you absolutely do not want to be doing that. So practicing mindfulness walking, whether you're in the residency of the hospice or in your own home or outside, it's really wonderful to do. And this is basically observing how the quality of your movement through space, the environment around you. How are you walking? How are your feet touching the ground? Are you walking with your hands and your arms tight? How about your shoulders? Are you carrying a lot of tension in your jaw and your face? Observe how you're walking through space. Are your joints locked? Loosen up, relax, and flow. And when you walk into a room with a resident that's in the room, mindfully walk into the room. Okay, the next thing is everyday practices. This is like cleaning the room, communicating with others, being mindful, whatever we're doing. The next thing, the fifth thing is taking a pause. Maybe a lot of things are happening, and you can do this anytime, any place. Just stop, take a long, deep breath, and pause. This is very easy to do, doesn't take much time. Especially do it before you enter a room. What I do when I'm working with people, assisting people, I not only take a pause before I enter their space, I also do this meditation. It doesn't take a whole lot of time. Is I imagine that there's this energy field going around the person, and that there's no distinction, there is no separation between myself and the person. I do this first, and I make sure this is happening before I enter the space of this other person. I do this not only when I'm working with someone who's ill or in the last stages of their life, but I also do it anytime I communicate with anybody who I'm going to meet. I send out this loving field of energy that surrounds them. And again, there's no separation between myself and the others. You know, and we can all do that as we're sitting here. You know, we can do that for each other as we move along here, you know, just sending the energy out. So you can do all of these practices that I just mentioned in regard to mindfulness, regardless of what kind of personal religious practice that you have, okay? I want to move into right now beliefs that people have about death itself. What is this thing called death, and what actually happens? You know, there's a lot of research going on by hospice physicians, by social workers, by a whole array of other people, several universities, especially University of Virginia, also University of Washington, about trying to find out, can we scientifically figure out what goes on after death? So of course, it's a big task, and there's a lot of people that are working on this and trying to come up with answers, definitive answers. We want definitive answers, you know, exactly what is going to happen. So let me share with you a couple of things. I want to briefly mention something that has happened to me. I started out talking about this experience I had when I was just turned 4 years old, but I've had many of those. And I had a most dramatic one when I was on a pilgrimage, a spiritual pilgrimage in India, in the Himalaya mountains. I was up about 16,000 feet. I was going to this place of this hermitage of this yogi who supposedly had been, so the story went, he had been living there for hundreds of years. Anyways, I wanted to check this place out, and I went with some friends. And anyway, en route, I became quite ill. At the time, I didn't know it, but I had amoebic dysentery, and climbing up this mountain in the Himalayas right on the Tibetan border, I also developed severe pains in my knee. Basically, what had happened after, you know, this is a very long story, but what had happened, and I won't get into it, only the very basic things I need to pass on here, is when I went back to the temple where I was staying in the guest house, all these Indians came around me, because mistakenly they thought I was some saint or something, and they were putting their hands on my body. I fell down on the marble walkway, went unconscious, and I kind of briefly remember I went back into the room, and I can remember everyone left, and I was left there. I started going in and out of my body. Regardless of what you think of this, I'll tell you what happened for me. You may have your own impression of it, you know, and certainly you need to have your own impression. And I'm not going to say it's any kind of reality other than this is the reality I had. And so very briefly, I went in and out of my body, and I realized that I was dying, and it was quite depressing for me because I was 30 years old, and I didn't come to India to die. And I started going through a whole lot of things, and including all the regrets of my life, and it was very painful. And I then, like a explosion, went completely out of my body into, I will use a very Christian term, valley of death. And I knew I had died. And immediately I started experiencing all the things in my life, like everything, right back to the moment I was born. And what was remarkable is I started seeing hundreds, if not thousands of people I had long forgotten about. These are people who are completely 100% out of my memory. They were long gone. And there they all were, right from the very beginning. All the kids in my classes, my school teachers, oh, it was unbelievable seeing all of them. Where did they come from out of my memory? How did my memory produce all of these people? Okay, that was fine. But what I then went into was pretty intense, because I was shown all of the very, I will call it, not so beautiful parts of my life, every single one of them. And I'm talking about thoughts of the most minute nature, like, oh, I don't like her hat, that kind of thing. And what happened was, it was even a thought like that was blown up, because all that existed was that thought form for eternity. And it was that vibration of thought, me, whatever me was, and that vibration. That's all that existed for eternity. I use the word eternity. It was eternity. But then, this is not logical what I'm telling you, but kind of, if you can, hang in there a little bit. We went into the next moment of the next thing and the next thing. And it was the most hellish experience beyond imagination, believe me. But all of a sudden, this light started coming in, and the light became more beautiful and more beautiful, ecstatically beautiful. And I started hearing this, like, this harmonic vibration of the most gorgeous music beyond the beyond. Oh, it was so amazing. And there was like a presence that was, I don't want to say the presence was talking to me. It was like waking up things inside of me, of things like faith. I was shown, wow, you have like almost zero faith. I'm going, well, how can that be? I've had my spiritual practice, and I've got a lot of faith. But I was shown, no, it was almost zero. And then the next thing was shown things of, wow, you've totally, your life's been almost a complete waste. And I'm thinking, wow, how can that be? No, I've lived a good life. I've done all these things. Wow, look at what I've done. I said, no, you've spent way too much time with these negative feelings that keep coming up and you keep relating to. Well, okay. So you've been totally wasting this precious life. I said, wow, okay. And so it kept going on and on and on. And then all of a sudden, after I went through all this stuff of my life, I was taken on this tour of the cosmos, of the most, absolutely the most incredible sights and sounds and galaxies forming and superclusters, and it was life in creation to the fullest. The most magnificent thing anyone could ever imagine, much more than my body could ever handle, physical body. And all of a sudden I said, I've got to go back. And I plunged back into my body, and I opened up my eyes, and there were all these tubes in my body. When I went out, I was the only one in the room. and I have all these tubes and machines, and the room was full of people. And this doctor from Indian doctor, he looked down into my eyes and said, "Oh, welcome back. You have died and you have come back." And everybody clapped in the room. And the first thing I said, "What day is it?" And they said, "Oh, it's Wednesday." And I said, "When am I supposed to go back to America?" And they said, "Oh, well, you're supposed to go back Friday, but you're going to be here at least a month, recovering." That's Friday, okay. Friday morning came, and 2 o'clock in the morning, I took a rickshaw to the airport and got on the plane and went to, then it was Bombay, and I went to the then Pan Am counter, and they said, "Oh," so I told them my name. Said, "Oh, sir, your name, we do not have your name in the big book." Put a few rupees on the table, and said, "Oh, there's your name, okay." And got on the plane, went to a internist who checked me out thoroughly. He said, "You are in perfect condition." And I thanked, got down, thanked Mother Earth, and I was at that time. I was lost a lot of weight, but I was in good shape. Now, I told you this very, very lengthy story. It's my story. I'm not saying, I don't want to say any of that's going to happen to any of you. It was my story for me. But one thing I realized from that, it helped me to understand that that something I do personally believe, that there's going to be a time that a reckoning of sorts, that people go through approaching the final moment of their life, whether it's, the time of death, which you can call by a number of different words, or just prior to it. And this is what I talked about a little bit earlier of the puzzle that people in their final days are trying to put together, the puzzle of their life. That's why prior to this, like maybe a month, 2 months, 3 months before that, people want to tell their story. They want someone who could listen to their story. And hopefully those of us who are doing caregiving in whatever form that might take, are there and are present to listen and allow that person to become our teacher. Because that person in those moments, they are the teacher. We are not the teacher, they are the teacher. And we are there just to listen and to be present. And they are not there to tell you these wild, crazy things and half truths. What will come out is their deepest truth. So again, that story I told you was for me to realize, to be present in these final moments, because people are going to, if they can, they're going to tell you their deepest, most wonderful truths that are going to come out. So having said that, and I say briefly, I'm going to talk about what different religions say. Now, when I bring these religions up, some of you might say, "Oh, they believe other things." That's not just that. They believe many other things, and they believe this, and they believe that. Yes, for every single one that I'm going to mention, it's not the totality of what people in these beliefs believe. These are what, generally speaking, maybe most people believe. It's kind of like Christianity. What do you believe after death? Or Buddhism. So I'm going to kind of go through these because there will be times where you're going to meet people from these different religious beliefs. Okay, let me start out with the Middle East and India. The Baha'is. The Baha'is have about 7 million people. They don't believe in heaven. They don't believe in hell, only closeness to God. Okay. Next is Hinduism. There's about 900 million Hindus on this planet. No heaven, no hell. Soul reincarnation. They also believe that you go to the place where you are at the time of death. Okay, there's some kind of Buddhist overlappings in this. that where you are at the time of death consciously, that's where you go, call it heaven, call it hell. Many Hindus also will cremate with the idea that you want to free the soul so that the soul doesn't hang out, like a ghost, okay? The Sikhs, there's about 25 million Sikhs around. They believe in reincarnation, one God, that the underworld is quite painful. Africa, well, I can touch upon Africa, but of course, Africa, we're dealing with a lot of people that in many of the different groups in Africa, also Islam and Christianity mixed up, and that is taking many different forms. But if I were to generalize, I would say that they believe life continues in another realm. And hopefully you will become like an ancestor that can guide others, okay? But there's wide variations. Islam, okay? Islam believes in a paradise and a hell, that the souls will wait until Judgment Day. Then the soul will be taken by the angel of death, called Azrael. That Allah can forgive, that those who end up in hell, that through the mercy of Allah, that that soul can be resurrected. They don't like to do cremation. They believe again the body dies, but the soul continues, and that there will be this Judgment Day. Okay. Judaism also, there's not so many things that you can talk about Jewish beliefs. It really depends upon what form of Judaism a person is following. And a lot of it, I would say, is really left up to personal belief, okay? With more of an emphasis on focusing on this life. Well, okay, the big one here is Christianity. Well, okay, there's so many, as we all know, so many variations of Christianity. In many forms believe in a purgatory, awaiting purification. I would relate this purgatory to like a liminal state, kind of like what I talked about before with my experience of this grand one, and I've had several of them. That it's kind of like a liminal state that people go into. And what happens after that, really after that, who knows? But so that kind of relates to this purgatory thing that Christians believe in. Now the Mormons, okay, Latter-day Saints, they believe in salvation, that there's 3 levels of heaven, and that people are basically married to Jesus. And because of their belief, resurrection of Jesus, that we will all be resurrected, regardless of good and evil. Yeah, and many also believe that you'll join your families. There's a lot more to it, but I won't go into that at this moment. There's another, since there are quite a few Jehovah Witnesses around here, including hospitals. They believe really in simplicity, including a funeral. They believe in modesty. They don't like extravagant anything. As many of you know, also in a hospital setting, that they will tend to refuse blood transfusions because they believe blood is sacred. It's kind of interesting because they do not believe in it. This is what is kind of subtle. They don't believe in an immortal body or an immortal spirit. They believe that death is the end of all things. Okay, now, having said that, they also believe that you can be brought back to life in paradise. And if you have enough faith and you follow the scriptures, that 144,000 of you, will be brought back and resurrected. and live in heavenly state for eternity with Jesus. Okay, Jehovah Witnesses. Let's see, Native Americans, there's also a wide variety. They basically, many of them call it their happy hunting ground, afterlife, or the Great Spirit. Basically, the souls enter the spirit world and influence our lives on earth. Well, these days, especially different tribes, there's kind of a mixture of Christianity and, also things like Day of the Dead. So there's things have been kind of mixed over the years. Okay. Let's move into a little bit with Buddhism. And I want to this is huge. This is maybe the most complex because there's so many forms of Buddhism. Not all of Buddhists believe in reincarnation. In fact, some forms, especially the one I studied for many years, Soto Zen, they don't even talk about it. Dogen, who founded it back in the year 1200, briefly talks about it. There's also Rinzai Zen. But the main form of Buddhism over in Europe is Mahayana Buddhism. And the main form of that is called Pure Land Buddhism. And within Pure Land Buddhism, they believe that there's Amida, who's God, that will welcome you into this Pure Land. And this Pure Land is the place between the land of suffering, which is the earth, and also the state of enlightenment and liberation. So that's the Pure Land. There's so much we could say about that, but there's something really actually quite interesting about that, and it's a very subtle thing, because as I talk about reincarnation, many forms of Buddhism do believe that, depending upon your so-called karma, but many forms also talk about it in a slightly different way called manifestation. So rather than birth and rebirth, they talk about remanifestation, which is basically like all the constituents, like, for example, Thich Nhat Hanh talks about like a flower. What is a flower? Flower is manifest. The flower is already there before you actually see it, because it's in the sun, it's in the clouds, it's in the rain, it's in the soil, it's in the seed, it's already there. So what you see when the conditions are right, the flower manifests. When the conditions are not right, the flower so-called dies. And when the conditions are right, the flower manifests again. And the same thing with the so-called human soul. Okay. So they really believe that the soul the human being is made up of these constituents of body and mind and consciousness and emotions, and when the conditions are right, they all come together, and when they're not, they dissipate. Okay, so that's a very subtle thing. We could talk a lot about that. There's also in Buddhism, basically, they talk about the 6 realms of hell, the heavenly, or the hungry ghosts. These are ghosts who are never satisfied. Animal level, the gods who are into power, the human level, and the God realm with a small g. Okay. And the last thing I want to talk about in regard to this, Tibetan Buddhism, which I find to be the most fascinating, because Buddhists spend their life studying death. So that's why it's totally, completely fascinating to me. And they talk about bardos. Bardo means the in-between state. And we are always in bardos. We have many bardos in our life, but the main bardo is when we die and you go into this bardo state. And this is a state we are seeing different levels of light, and depending upon where our consciousness is, will determine what level we reincarnate back into. So they have what's called the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the bardo fodo. And next to the person that has just died, people will read for 4 days, at least 4 days, they will read from the bardo fodo 24 hours a day. And they believe that there are the 3 stages of dying. The first one is realizing, the dead person realizing that he or she has died. And this can take up to 4 days. So the first part of the Tibetan Book of the Dead is about this. The second part is the frightening emanations of demons, that there are a lot of very scary things that are going to come up. You can call them demons, monsters, whatever, and they're going to terrify us, but we have to continue, keep up, keep going, persevere, go through it. So the person reading to the dead, to the body that, the person that just died, the monks or anybody who's reading it is telling the person, keep up, keep going. These are only figments of your imagination. All these scary things have come out of your mind. They're just airy nothings. Keep going, okay? Understand, this is how it is. And the third stage is this, we'll call it the judgment stage of a kind of a day of reckoning. But the main thing is, don't be afraid, keep going, okay? Because this is what will happen. This is what they tell the people while they are reading, okay? So I would like to, just so we can stay on time here, I would like to do 2 things. Guide you through a meditation. This is a meditation relating to dying. So if you feel brave enough, and I hope you are, it's let's participate together. It's a wonderful one to do. And if you're not, just sit to the side and you can just listen, okay? And again, there's different parts of it, and this is going to relate to dying, the dying phase, okay? So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to have you sit in a nice, beautiful position again. Eyes can be open, closed, half open, as they do in many of the Zen practices, okay? Be as comfortable as you can. The chin will be in a little bit, shoulders can be relaxed. Okay. Now take a long, deep breath and totally release the breath completely. Just let it go, all of it, long breath. Take another long, deep breath. Fully, completely release it. Let's do this one last time. Long, deep breath. And release the breath. Okay. Now begin scanning your body, checking your face. Is there any tension in your face? If so, let it go. Feel your nose, your eyes, your chin, your jaw. Let the tension go. Just soften the body. And move down through your shoulders, down your arms, into your hands. Your shoulders and arms, hands are relaxed. Let it go, soften. Move down through your chest and your stomach, pelvic area, soften everything. Down through your legs, knees, down into your feet. Relax. If you're feeling discomfort anywhere, just acknowledge it. Acknowledge it. Continue. Now, visualize the teeming masses of people populating this earth. So many. Visualize them. See their faces, so many of them. from many different countries and cultures. And consider the reality that each one of them will die. This is inevitable. Now, bring to mind the image of someone you know and love. Look into his or her face. Consider the reality that they will die. This is inevitable. Notice and allow yourself to feel any emotions that arise. Feel these emotions and let them pass. Next, consider the reality that you yourself will die. Your physical body will be difficult to move. The muscles will become weak. Your body is so uncomfortable to be in. You are moving into dissolution. And the life force and spirit is leaving this physical vessel. You will have your last breath. This is inevitable. You will begin to feel a warm, loving light within you and around you. You don't know when or how it will happen. Then move toward the light. It's a most gentle, loving light. Its beauty is spectacular. All is clear and all is loving light. How much love and light can you hold? Allow yourself to immerse in this wondrous glow of love light. It's all love and light. Allow yourself to be in this love light. You are love light. Now, with a long, deep breath, come back into your body, be here, and notice any emotions that arise, any thoughts about what you wish you would have done or said in your life. Take a moment to consider how you can use this to inform your life. Just take a moment to reflect on this, your response to the reality of death. Okay, and you come back into the room, your eyes can be open. As far as this part goes, let me see. I want to read a poem called Silver by Jeanette Ansenius. And we'll do questions and answers after that if you like. But I'd like to read this first. I've only on the screen, hopefully you all see this poem. And is only part of it, and I will continue reading the rest of it because I didn't want so many words on the screen at the same time. That's why. This is called Silver. Goes like this. How many years of beauty do I have left? She asked me. How many more do you want? Here's 34. Here's 50. When you are 60 years old and your beauty rises in ways your cells cannot even imagine now, and your wild bones grow luminous and ripe, having carried the weight of a passionate life. When your hair is aflame with winter, and you have decades of learning and leaving and loving sewn into the corners of your eyes, and your children come home to find their history in your face. When you know what it feels like to fall ferociously and have gained the capacity to rise and rise again. When you can make your tea on a quiet and ridiculously lonely afternoon and still have a song in your heart. Queen owl, wings beating beneath the cotton of your sweater, because your beauty began there, beneath the sweater and the skin. Remember? This is when I will take you into my arms and coo, you brave and glorious thing. You've come so far. I see you. Your breath, your beauty is breathtaking. Okay. Okay. I want to thank you for being with me through this. We can have some question and answers, if you like. Comments, anything you like. You can put it in the chat or raise your, if you know how to use the little raise your hand
What just
thing.
happened?
There you are.
Is that me?
That's you.
What just happened? Was that supposed to happen?
What
Well,
happened?
we just now came back into presence.
Oh, no, I just heard vibrating voices.
Oh,
Were you doing that on purpose?
no, I didn't hear that.
Oh my God, that was so crazy.
Mm. It was
Did
a
anyone else
beautiful-
hear it?
No, maybe. No.
Don't be afraid. Keep going.
Oh, I'm sorry that happened. Don't know what that was.
It was either a Zoom bummer or maybe you left your body there with you for a moment.
Wow,
No.
very mysterious.
It was the most bizarre thing I've ever heard.
Huh.
And I wasn't sure you were doing it on purpose and I was supposed to go with the flow.
Oh, wow,
just-
okay.
We're
Breathe
experimental
into
around
it
here,
and
not
let
that experimental.
Gosh.
That was beautiful. Because the poem was beautiful.
Yeah.
Put that up. Mm.
I know after having sessions like this, I know for myself, quite difficult to speak. But if you'd like to, please do.
Just I'll say I love that that image or the practice of walking into a room or in any kind of connection, but particularly just here because I've been up and down the hallway hundreds of times, it seems like, in the last year of walking into a room and before walking in or as enveloping in this one. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's very important and beautiful. Yeah.
And I think that in particular, because I think one of the residents that may or may not, but may come to us first is a gentleman who doesn't have any family, and he's quite alone, has been cared for by neighbors, and he doesn't speak. He's very end, and so just holding that space.
Yeah, it's wonderful to do all day long. Oh, let's see. I'm looking at some comments here. Janelle, I think it's Janelle. And what made you decide to select that poem? I decided to choose that poem. When I first read that, it really struck me about two elderly people who've been together for such a long time, and yet still seeing the beauty in the other, and kind of looking at what is beauty, that after all these many, many years, still seeing beauty right up to the last moment. Yeah. What a lovely way to be.
I did not hear the poem because all I heard was those crazy noises. And I'd like to hear the poem. Is it too long to read again?
I'll print it and I'll put it out tomorrow at Hopewell House, and I can also send it out when I send the recording.
Yeah, I'll show you the rest of. I'll send the rest of the poem to you, Crystal. Yeah. Okay. Let's see.
It seems to me. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Seems to me that all religions are basically based on love, and that as volunteers, we can value all of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you. Yeah. If you took all these, sorry. Oh, I can't hear you. You're muted.
My husband's name is Daniel, and he's the one that does computer. I don't.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how to put my name up there.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. What is your name?
Beth.
Beth. Okay.
Elizabeth, but my friends call me Beth, so please call me Beth.
Okay, Beth. Yeah. Yeah, thank you for saying that about the religion. Certainly, if you could take a Venn diagram, you've got all these religions, and there's a little tiny part, that overlaps and has to do with loving kindness. And, all the rest, well, you can do whatever you need to do with the rest of it. But yeah, it all comes down to loving kindness. Yeah.
Well, if I could say another thing to get out of the trauma of that noise, I was I found the whole presentation very moving. Thank you very much. And I was sort of planning my own exit and transformation into the next level as you were talking, and just sort of almost in a way planning my funeral and what I wanted to have happen. And, having my meditation teacher be there and do a meditation with all my friends and loved ones. And so thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I think everyone in this room is aware of their own fears of death and maybe not being prepared for death. Even though everyone here in some form, some ways doing caregiving, that we all the time, consistently need to look at death and our relationship to death. When I heard this, long, decades ago, meditate on death. I used to think, wow, why do you want to do that? That's, like, oh, no. And I used to hear things, yogis used to go to cemeteries and meditate on, sit on top of tombs and such. Say, wow, that's really crazy. But I realized that, do what we need to do to really face death. And part of facing death has to do with our fears. And I hear all the time, you probably do too, people say, oh, I'm not afraid of death. I'm not afraid of dying. Okay. We need to really face that. And when we do face our death, face dying, that all those other fears that we have, all those other anxieties, all those other traumas that we have, and we all have trauma too, we're able to work with it, because the fear of death is the big one. And if we can face that, it just makes our life so much lighter, so much more beautiful, so much more loving, so much more kind. But as caregivers, we all need to be facing that and working with that, on a regular daily basis. And we become lighter. We become more loving. Marcia, hi.
Hi, so nice to speak with you. Joseph, one of the things that you related about your own experience, in which you were reviewing even the most somewhat benign negative thought, like, oh, I don't like her hat, or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It really struck me that one of the reasons to think about death is because life is death and death is life. And in that way, the daily thoughts, the formations of that we have during the day, we take with us. They are part of us. They are life into death. And as you keep referring to, loving kindness, I'm reminded that even if I don't like that hat, I'm going to I'm going to love it, because during that review, we are asked to look at each transgression and embrace it.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, Marcia. In regard to that, that has a lot to do with the whole aspect of mindfulness, of not being judgmental. And that's a hard one. It's really, that's a tough one. And also to see things with fresh eyes. That's, in regard to mindfulness, that's one of the things that I personally relate to, maybe the most, seeing things with fresh eyes. I think we could talk about so many more. Maybe we'll do one more, because I know we should be closing up here in a second here. But I think Janelle is whatever you are.
Yeah, this is Ryan. So I just had a question.
Hi.
In your study of death, do you find that cultures outside of the Western world are more in tune with death, or is kind of the denial and looking away from death more of a Western thing or a worldwide thing? And I just localize it on myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yes, I'm sure everyone's heard it, that Americans are, have death phobia. They don't want to talk about death. Although this is starting to change. It's definitely starting to change, especially with younger people. Younger people tend to be much more open to talking about it now. But yeah, other cultures, certainly in my travels all around Asia, people talking about death, it's, very natural thing to talk about. It's part of their life. It is part of life. But no, we're in a youth, we worship, you know, we have youth culture here and we just don't want to get into it. But other cultures around the world, including Europe, yeah, it's something's commonly talked about with, you know, anytime. But we tend not to do that here. And as I say, it is changing now. But thank you for asking that. Crystal, I know we need to close up here.
Yeah,
So.
I just want to, thank you again, Joseph. That was really, that was profound. I will point to, until we get art here in some of the house, some of my art is here. I mean, not my painting, but I have a picture of painting on going down to the hallway that I got in, but not Varanasi, India, when I lived there. But Hindus and Buddhists both believe that you should have an image, something in your home to remind you of death. And so I have a painting that I got in Varanasi of a ghat that I spent a lot of time at down there, a lot of time down at the river. There's lots of different things around the home, but that's hanging there until it's replaced. So
yeah, wonderful.
That was so beautiful. And again, thank you, Margie and Sheila and Jackie and Bruce this week for so much time, and for each of you who've been in the home. Looking forward to seeing all of you. And again, on the 20th on Friday from 2 to 3, for any of you who are interested, Shantara is doing a sound healing. If you would like to join, please do. If you want to be on the ground, on the floor, please bring a yoga mat and pillows. There'll be chairs. If you are planning to attend, please send me an email and let me know if you're attending. Shantara is gracing us with this sound healing twice a month. So if you can't make it on Friday, no problem, because she'll offer it twice in February. So it is a beautiful experience. She did it last week with the staff, and it really is it's magnificent. So I thank you
wonderful.
all. And Joseph, again, many thanks. That was beautiful.
Yeah,
I'll send the recording out along with the poem to all. Thank you, Jim. Blessings to all. Kathy in Hawaii, I'll miss you. Lois is on her way to Mexico tomorrow. Have a beautiful, delightful trip. I can't wait to hear about it. And I'll see you all soon. Thanks so much, Shartar. I'll see you Friday. Thanks, Joseph.